Well, greetings and salutations, everyone. Welcome back once again for the very first time to the Farts and Crap Show, where today, as per usual, it's your host Anjo here with part 37 of Stick Tips, the segment here on the show all about controllers, adapters, gaming accessories, and how we like to use them. Hope you guys are all having a great day today, and on today's episode, we are going to be covering quite a few things, and this video is going to be 3 sections. So we're going to be doing the overview for the controller, the 8bitdo Pro 2 for Xbox, specifically the Hall Effect version, although I will be referencing the previous version quite a few times in this video. And we're going to be starting with the overview. Then we're going to go through the disassembly and cleaning process. And finally, we're going to do a gameplay section. And then do the outro, as we always do at the end of these videos. And everything is going to be timestamped, so you can easily jump between chapters and stuff if, if that is your preference. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started. And of course, at the top of this one, I am just going to do a quick little TLDR. If you guys are interested in this controller, I 100% think it's worth it. I've been using it as my main controller for almost a full year now, and it is like my 10th 8bitdo controller or something like that. It's my 4th Pro 2, because I had the original version, the original 8bitdo Pro 2 for Xbox before they started doing the Hall Effect versions. The regular Bluetooth version of the Pro 2, the translucent shell, so technically that was a soft reboot, and the Pro 2 wired controller. And I gotta say, and the SN30 Pro Plus, which was kind of the Pro 2 before the Pro 2, so I guess this is kind of technically my 5th Pro 2. I gotta say, this one is kind of better than all the other ones. I don't have a Pro 3 now that exists. I kind of don't care because I actually prefer wired controllers. Like, most of the controllers I like to use are hardwired, because I don't like wireless latency. And the easiest way to avoid that is to not use a wire, just use a wired controller. I don't like wireless. Although 8bitdo does have that new 8-speed tech for their 2.4 gigahertz controllers, so if they made a Pro 2 version of that, I'd be very interested, especially if it had 1,000 hertz pulling rate, which the Pro 3 does not. But yes, that is the TLDR. If you're interested in the controller, 100% worth it. Especially right now. For customers, Amazon customers in the US, if you have Prime, there is a Black Friday deal going on for this controller. It's 20% off, which works out to $9 off. Usually MSRP's for $45 USD. You can pick it up for $35.99 right now. No, none of this is sponsored, affiliate links, none of that. Personal recommendations from me to you guys. Absolutely no in between. So if you guys like that kind of thing, please consider a super thanks or memberships or something like that. Or they have that new hype feature on YouTube as well. If you want to hype the video, that would be amazing. I've been basically working on this working with this controller and also on this video for 11 months now. So a lot of stuff culminating today. And yeah, hope you guys enjoy, because it's been a long time coming. But yeah, it's a beautiful controller. It's kind of hard to photograph, honestly. The white version, at least, it, like most of these images I'm going to be showing you guys, had to be adjusted because like the camera just did not want to focus. Sometimes it looked way too dark, sometimes it looked way too bright. It was all kinds of not good stuff. Also, I'm pretty sure the Hall Effect version of the controller always comes with a little voucher thing for like 1 month of Game Pass Ultimate. So if you use Game Pass, there you go. That is 1 month of Ultimate, and I think Xbox recently increased the price of Game Pass, so pretty good value there. Personally, I just gave mine to a friend, but yeah. And of course, it is a very customizable controller, so you can use 8bitdo's Ultimate software with it. Although it is a slightly different version of Ultimate software, this will not work with the standard version of the program that you download from the website. The Xbox 8bitdo controllers need to be used with the Ultimate software that's available through the Microsoft Store. So I'm pretty sure it works directly on an Xbox console. I personally don't have one to like test and verify on that. But yeah, it's Ultimate Software X, technically, is the name of the program. And yeah, you can just download it off of the Microsoft Store for free. It's very useful, especially for this feature, which I love. You can disable the dead zones on the analog sticks if you want to. And since they are Hall Effect sticks, you shouldn't get any drift, although I will say this. The tension on the sticks is kind of low. So even just like moving the controller slightly or like jiggling the sticks slightly can register accidental inputs if you disable the dead zones. Now, if you're getting any other kind of weird behaviors on the analog sticks, they do have a calibration feature that is very easy to use, as I'm showing here. And I don't know if it was a bug before, but like I think I screwed up the calibration or something. Because I was getting like some diagonal down to the right inputs on both the left and the right analog stick. I'm not sure why. And it was only really repeatable in one instance, which we'll get to that in the gameplay portion. But I recommend doing it this way, essentially disabling the dead zone, syncing to the controller, and then calibrating the analog sticks, and then disabling the dead zone and then resyncing to the controller. Because you have to do the sync to controller feature or option after making changes. Like if there are no changes, it will just be grayed out and you can't sync. So that's kind of what I'm doing here. I'm trying to like jiggle the analog sticks, see how much default dead zone there is compared to intentional inputs. So trying to eliminate that accidental inputs from essentially just like moving the controller to differentiate that from actually moving the analog sticks. So yeah, with this controller, because the tension is actually lower on the sticks than on the original version, like because on the original version of the Pro 2 for Xbox, the analog sticks had noticeably higher tension. So just like moving the controller slightly, the analog sticks were not moving. And yeah, you also can't update the controller with the 8bitdo firmware updater. But you can also do that here. If there is a firmware update, you can update the controller through Ultimate Software X. And yeah, you can calibrate the sensitivity of the triggers, which is nice because they are also Hall effect triggers, and again, the tension is much lower. So sometimes, like if you're not careful, like setting down the controller, since it kind of rests on the left trigger and right trigger, you might it might move slightly if it's not like a completely flat surface that you're setting it on. And you don't necessarily want accidental inputs, especially if you're playing a game where, for example, RT or R2, whatever the right trigger is, to fire a weapon or something like that. You don't want to accidentally shoot a teammate. You know, that would be bad, especially if you're just, getting up to go grab a glass of water or something. But yeah, Ultimate Software X is great, and it actually just had an update on the 21st of November 2025. So I think they squashed some bugs or something like that. I'm not really sure. So yeah, this is the Hall effect version side by side with the original version, and they are almost indistinguishable. Personally, I just wanted the white version because it was the only other color available. Really wish they'd do some translucent shells for these controllers. I get the solid white and solid black is like kind of with the Series X and S branding that they had going, and it's kind of a classic for the Xbox brand. Kind of ever since the Xbox One, I guess. And like, it looks good, it looks clean. But the only real noticeable difference is one has a wire sticking out of it because it is hardwired, whereas the new ones have a removable cable. And the removable cable that it is included with it is not that great, in my opinion. It feels kind of generic, not the best quality, and a little soft, I guess, which I'm not a big fan of. It feels like it's maybe not the most durable, but I'm not really sure. I'm usually very careful with my cables. Whereas the hardwired version, the cable felt great, and it was longer. It's like a 10-foot cable or something like that, or 3.3 meters, I think. So yeah, the new one is noticeably shorter, and it doesn't feel as good, but since it is removable, technically you could use a different cable if you have an extra like 10-foot USB Type-C cable, Type-C to Type-A, male to male, lying around. And yeah, the original version also had the breakaway style cable, which Xbox used to be known for, and they had going back to the very first Xbox. It was never a feature that I was like, oh man, thank goodness that has a breakaway cable. But it was there. So, I mean, that's cool. And I don't know why they chose to do the breakaway cable. It was a nice touch, but in practicality, I don't really see a reason for it. And yeah, the included analog stick caps. I love these things. They fit perfectly. They make the analog sticks feel so much better. It livens up the monochromatic appearance so much more, because without them, the only color on the controller is on the ABXY buttons. It's kind of flat and boring, and these, not only do they look great, they feel amazing. And before I got this controller, I had one other set of these that came with the Pro 2, my Bluetooth one that has the translucent shell. I got the transparent black, and it looks great. I love that controller. But it is Bluetooth, and I don't love Bluetooth. It's just a latency thing. I don't like the pairing. I don't like having to recharge, think about, oh, when was the last time I recharged the battery? I would prefer to just plug it in and just go. It is not a feature I like. Like, wireless is fine if it's 2.4 gigahertz. I don't like Bluetooth. And yeah, it does have a 3.5 millimeter jack with a mute toggle. That is kind of nice. I forgot to mention that, but I forgot this is also the close-up for that. And yeah, the analog stick caps, though, they do get a little grungy over time, because like the oils from your skin, you know, like your thumbs are rubbing on them all the time. They're really easy to clean up. Just use a little like toothbrush, toothpaste, and you know, lather it up, rinse it off with hot water, let it dry, and they're like new again. They're really durable, and they just make the analog sticks feel so much better. And yeah, we are now getting into the dangerous part of the video. So I will preface this by saying, attempt this at your own risk. There is a high chance of damaging key controller components. Also, carefully keep track of all the parts during disassembly. Unfortunately, and you may wonder, okay, why would you disassemble the controller? If you want to clean it, like to give it a good deep clean, you have to get to the components inside the controller. And especially if you're having issues with the D-pad or the ABXY, that was why I wanted to do this, because I've done that to almost all of my 8bitdo controllers. If they start acting funky, and there's a number of like retro games or retro inspired games that I use to test those to see if there's any kind of like weird inputs I'm getting, or like lack of picking up diagonals is another common thing. Some people use like fighting games like Street Fighter 6 or Tekken 8 or something to really like see if there's anything not being communicated correctly through the controller inputs. So this is highly recommended if you're having any sort of issues with this controller, but also it is risky. And even though I've disassembled like a dozen 8bitdo controllers and cleaned them, and not just 8bitdo controllers, but a couple of Hori controllers, a couple of PDP controllers, I've disassembled and cleaned many controllers. That's what most of the episodes on Stick Tips are about. This was not easy to do. It was very anxiety inducing, even though I had already done the process to the original version, which I thought, hey, it's a Hall effect update. You know, the disassembly and cleaning should be roughly the same, right? It's actually not. It was more of a pain than the original version, and I don't know why, and a lot more of a pain than the Pro 2 wired controller. Like, that one was much easier by comparison, which was strange. Like, very weird to me how different it was. So again, attempt at your own risk, but like I mentioned earlier, you can get these controllers on a discount every so often, like the Black Friday deal. I've seen 20% off deals on 8bitdo controllers many times. You can regularly get these for about $35. So maybe have a spare one handy in case you accidentally damage something, because I definitely have accidentally damaged a thing or two in the past. Thankfully, nothing went wrong this time, but the whole process did take about 4 hours. So be sure to have enough time in your day when you choose to do this. And I think that's all I really needed to preface here, I hope. So, I'm going to go through the process here, what you're going to need Essentially, you don't need all of this. You'll definitely need a T6 or Torx 6 screwdriver. You'll need another narrow neck screwdriver, either a 2.0 or a 3.0, somewhere in there. And I would recommend a few prying tools. Personally, I used these three, which I couldn't find another like dedicated prying tool, so like a symmetrical guitar pick was just fine. But a longer one with like a flat head at the end of it, and essentially a hook style one that's like a little heavier duty, and needle nose tweezers. You don't necessarily need needle nose tweezers. A regular set of tweezers is fine. I personally prefer needle nose tweezers when disassembling and cleaning controllers. Alright, so first up, you're going to need to take the analog stick caps off of the controller. Because if you don't, the analog sticks won't fit through the cutouts on the front half of the shell. You'll also need the T6 screwdriver because there are two T6 screws on the back of the shell, one in each of the handles towards the end. It's really just those two screws, and that's it. Aside from that, it's a lot of regular Phillips head screws inside the controller and a lot of high tension clips, keeping a lot of the stuff together to make it feel like one thing. And also, you're going to have to remove the caps on the left trigger and right trigger inputs. They're not buttons. Essentially the L2 and R2. So all of the Pro 2 controllers have these style of caps on them. And I have broken one of the clips before on the original version of this controller. It's not a big deal if one of them breaks because there are 6 anchor points on each cap. So it'll still clip back in. It should still be fine. It's not going to go anywhere. Honestly, if I didn't make a note to myself that I accidentally broke one on the previous version, I wouldn't have known. Like, it feels perfect. So, not the biggest deal. I would use a hook style prying tool for this and kind of like wedge it under the cap, between the cap and the shell, and try to carefully, but also with a decent amount of force, kind of pop it off. Like pry, you really have to pry it off. They are not easy to remove. I almost gave up at this point and was like, the controller's fine, because these were such a pain to remove. So yeah, just to let you know, the high tension clips on this controller are no joke. And so once you have the analog stick caps off, the LT and RT left trigger and right trigger caps off, and the Torx 6 screws removed, it's time for the prying tools. So there is a seam that runs across the entire controller that essentially is separating the front half of the shell from the back half of the shell. So you want to start by wedging a prying tool in each of the handles at the end here, as shown. And once you have a prying tool in each handle, then you want to go right under the 3.5 millimeter jack to kind of wedge a prying tool in there, which will help free the other clips on the underside of the controller. During this process, do not go around the sides or the top too much. You won't need to. there is one ribbon cable on the right side of the controller to the right of the B button that you want to be very careful with, because if you damage that, it's going to be a big problem. It may render the controller useless. But once you have the clips on the underside disengaged, there are two prongs that run from the front half of the shell to the back half of the shell at the edge of each handle. And they will bend. They are very durable. They're gonna bend a little bit. They will bend. But that is the ribbon cable on the right there. That's where it is. It basically runs from the PCB mounted, the PCB that houses the analog stick potentiometers. Not potentiometers, they're Hall effect. The analog stick units are on a separate PCB that is screwed into the back half of the shell. And it's just a ribbon cable running from that PCB to the main PCB in the front. And when you finally get all the clips disengaged, you basically want to open the front half of the shell from the back half of the shell from left to right, as seen here. Because, yeah, that ribbon cable is going to be on the right. It's that real small PCB that has the analog sticks. And the back half has the rumble motors as well. You can just leave those exactly where they are. Like, you don't have to mess with the ribbon cable, you don't have to mess with the rumble motors. I took off one of the analog stick caps just to kind of show this is the unit, the Hall effect unit. And yeah, you can easily just pop them back on. So yeah, after you get to this point, you don't have to mess with the back shell at all. Like, all we need to do is on the front shell. So there is a protective back plate that keeps the main PCB in place and everything else kind of where it needs to be. I don't know why they really use this, honestly. It's not all that necessary, but it also houses the mechanical units for the shoulder buttons. So in that sense, it is kind of necessary. And of course, the triggers are Hall effect. So it is a different mechanism than in the original version of the Pro 2 for Xbox. And there are, I believe, 9 Phillips head screws here that you need to unscrew. And at the edge of the handles there, yeah, those are the prongs that I mentioned at the end of each handle. They run the entire length of the controller. They're very durable. They will bend. Like, don't worry about it. So yeah, you need to remove those 9 Phillips head screwdrivers. Screws. I believe they're all the same size. Don't quote me on that. But keep everything organized. Like, take notes as you go. You know, you don't want to lose a screw or anything like that. And there are also separate connectors for each analog trigger. As you can see, they have the red and blue cables going from each Hall effect trigger to the main PCB. It's pretty easy to remove this plug. It seemed like a delicate piece, so I used my needle nose tweezers for this, but you could probably just pull it if you wanted to, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. If you have needle nose tweezers, yeah, use those. And I thought this was interesting, like, that this is what they looked like is very strange, but yeah, definitely a Hall effect unit. And there is one more security thing that is keeping the back plate connected to the front half of the shell, and that is, like, two more. Say it with me now. High tension clips. They are pretty easily disengaged though. Also, the 3.5 millimeter headphone jack has to sit flush with the shell, so you can kind of push and lift to kind of in a hook motion to disengage those clips. So once you have the clips disengaged and the triggers unplugged and the 9 Phillips head screws unscrewed, should be able to remove that back plate, no problem. And then this is the main PCB. So you have the ribbon cable from the other PCB running into this one. Again, you don't have to futz with that if you don't want to. And there's 2 more screws with like a magnetic shielding thing over the USB Type-C port. You'll have to remove those screws as well. I think those ones are a different size, so be sure to keep those in a separate safe place where you know that's what they're for. And also interestingly enough, the L1 and R1, or LB and RB, I guess, tactile dome switches are actually a different mechanism. Like, they built it differently than the original version of the Pro 2 for Xbox. I don't know why they did this, but they feel great, so no issues there. And aside from the D-pad and the ABXY, I believe all the inputs on this controller, as far as the buttons go, are tactile dome switches, and I do love that. Like, I do love a satisfying click of a dome switch. It's just, I don't know, it's a very visceral thing. That's the right word. And it just feels good. So, yeah, you'll have to unscrew those, and then you should be able to lift out the main PCB, no problem, because what we need to get to are the CRMs, or conductive rubber membranes. And these ones were dirty. Like, there's like a pretty large white fleck to the bottom right of the D-pad over there. No idea how that got there. But I've had this issue with several 8bitdo controllers before. And occasionally, I do this process of cleaning the conductive rubber membranes almost immediately after receiving a controller, depending on how it feels out of the box, because this is such a common issue. And thankfully, there's a pretty easy fix. Also, for whatever reason, maybe it was because of the dirty CRMs or something, the PCB also was a little bit dirty. Like, even just like wiping it slightly with a microfiber cloth, there was like this dark, like, dust that was coming off of it. I don't know if it was from the conductive pads for the ABXY and the D-pad or what, but yeah, it was just kind of a little bit grody. So some people use isopropyl alcohol. It's fine if you want to use that. I just gave it a little wipe down, a little compressed air, blasted it real quick, and let it sit for a while. But yeah, some people swear by the isopropyl alcohol method, especially for older PCBs that get really nasty. So again, this is a controller that was sealed very well, but used heavily for a year. And theoretically, there should be like almost no way for this PCB to actually get dirty. Like, it's well sealed. Like, and I try to keep my controllers in very good condition. So Yeah, and as far as the cleaning method for the CRMs, again, just a little bit generic toothpaste, a little bit of toothbrush, like, and tweezers, because essentially you want to use, you want to brush them a little bit. The brushing and the heat from the water, like, helps stiffen the rubberized material, which I don't think is actual rubber. I'm pretty sure it's silicone, but whatever. When it's a little bit more stiff and clean, it creates a more satisfying tactile press or click. So it's a lot easier to feel the difference between a button press and a button hold. And that was originally the problem that was happening with my B button, which was kind of a problem because when I was noticing it, it was during, I don't remember if it was Hollow Knight or Elden Ring, but either way, both of those games use that input as like a press is one thing, but holding it is a different thing. Like in Hollow Knight, pressing B, again, that's Xbox language, circle for PlayStation, is like your spells, but like holding the button down is your focus to heal. For Elden Ring, or Dark Souls or whatever, a press is your dodge roll, a hold is your sprint. So yeah, it oftentimes was like the difference between success and failure. Also, yeah, it's just some of the diagonal inputs on the D-pad were not really coming out right, and the D-pad feel was definitely different from the other D-pads that should have felt identical on the other Pro 2s. And when I say different, I mean not as good. But that was after a few months of using the controller like almost daily. So it was definitely a use case thing, and it was probably some stuff just getting jostled in there. But yeah, I was pretty sure cleaning these things up would fix the issue. And there was definite debris in there that was probably in there from when the controller first shipped. So regardless, yeah, very hot water, brush them up, and I've gone over this before in previous stick tips episodes, but yes, brush in tiny scrubbing circles using light pressure. You want a little bit of lather, essentially, but you also want to make sure to get all like the nooks and crevices. But the little black conductive pads they can pop off essentially, and if you're using like too hard of bristles, like there is a slight chance, or too much pressure, there's a slight chance of actually damaging the rubberized material, so you don't, light pressure. And of course the heat from the water should, change the tension, make it less, make the bristles less hard, essentially. Your rinse water should be very, very, very hot. I would recommend at least 140 degrees, or at least 120 degrees. Some people boil their conductive rubber membranes, like on the stovetop. That is another way to do it. I know that's more effective with like older ones for membranes for, like, let's say Sega Genesis controllers or NES controllers, that kind of thing. But yeah, it's too hot for your skin, essentially, so that's where you use the tweezers or heavy duty gloves. And air dry only. Compressed air will help, because these things are absolute magnets for dirt, dust, debris, all that stuff. Any kind of airborne material or something that would come off of a drying cloth, little stuff, like, they are just magnets for that sort of thing. So you want to be very careful. have a drying surface that is cleaned and prepped and ready. So air dry only. Like, can't stress that enough. So once you have them all cleaned up and all dry, they should look something like this. And just keep them off to the side for a second, because essentially this whole process of disassembly, this is where the notes come in. You're gonna have to do it backwards. So yeah, keep notes, like, just get used to the process and get used to, just the exact same steps, just in reverse. And once you get all that done, boom, you'll have your controller reassembled, ready to go, good as new, maybe even better than new. And for the gameplay portion, I'm going to be referencing the last video that I made on Stick Tips, which was about the Brook Wingman FGC2, which was about their brand new 1.1.2.3 beta firmware, which I speculated was probably going to be very similar to their upcoming stable firmware, and that actually was correct. So they released their stable firmware, version 1.1.2.4, very recently. I think on the 19th or the 20th of November 2025, and it is their first stable firmware in about 6 months. However, I think they're still working on something pretty big for the FGC2, because they have like 4 more betas, which this is not like insider knowledge or anything like that. I just, when I updated the FGC2, which you have to use the web updater now for some reason, kind of annoying, but it showed the other available firmware updates, and there was like 4 beta firmwares going up to like 1.1.2.8, I think. So highly suspect around the end of the year they'll probably have 1.1.3, or maybe they'll just call it 1.5 or 1.1.5. No, probably 1.2, I would imagine. Because they're also gearing up for the release of the Wingman P5, which is basically the FGC2, but it also is going to support wireless controllers. The FGC2 is wired only. I prefer wired anyway, so it's perfect for me. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So, because like I said, I don't even play on Xbox. I don't have an Xbox. I do have an Xbox 360 that's like probably broken. But yeah, I got this controller specifically to use on PS5 with the FGC2. Of course, it is an Xbox controller, and oh, if you guys are just tuning in for the chapter select, welcome to the gameplay portion. But yes, it is also an Xbox controller, so it will work on PC. I use it on PC pretty often, actually, mostly for playing retro games on emulators and stuff like that, but it should work on Steam no problem. I'm pretty sure I've used it on Steam before, and because yeah, at least on Windows it just recognizes it as an Xbox One controller, pretty sure, or 360 controller. So yeah, the integration there, it should have no issues. And I have Cyberpunk loaded up for a very particular reason, and actually let's just hit continue first and get in the game, because otherwise this part isn't going to make a lot of sense. And I do currently have a series for this game, which I will link at the end of the video here. But I made sure to have a point where we're not going to have any spoilers or anything like that, and just kind of a chill part of the city. So Got my 8bitdo Pro 2 for Xbox, the Hall Effect version, the controller I've been talking about this whole time. And I recently did the calibration on the analog sticks, as you guys saw earlier. And we are at only 2% inner dead zone, which is tiny. Thankfully, PS5 does not have inner dead zones on a system level. It is dependent on the software that you're playing. That is true for most all platforms. It depends on the game. Systems don't usually have dead zones by default anymore. So, whether it's console or PC or your OS, it's an input device. On a system level, it won't have inner dead zones. So yeah, 2% is very, very small. Like most games have roughly a default dead zone, which is usually around 10% ish, 10 to 13, somewhere in there. On Cyberpunk, you can turn it all the way up to 49, which is a massive dead zone. That essentially means half of your movement range on your analog stick is going to be ignored. So to have greater control and range of motion, I like to have this as close to 0 as possible. And even if I completely turn it down to 0 and disable the dead zone, like, yeah, it's doing that thing again, like down to the right very, very consistently. I don't know why it's doing that. That might actually be the FGC2, honestly, because I was not seeing anything like that. And you can rewind this video to the portion where I was messing with the analog sticks in Ultimate Software after the configuration. It was not showing anything like that, because the cursor here is the left analog stick. The camera is the right analog stick, and as you can see here, the camera is doing the exact same thing. So I have a feeling it's actually the FGC2, honestly, which I did customize, which you can do with Brooks Converter Center to customize how their Wingman. Does it work with more than the Wingman converters? Anyway, the Converter Center is to customize their adapters and how they perform. So I think even if I just turn this to 1, yeah, so that is a 1% dead zone. That is like next to nothing. Yeah. And it is completely gone. So I guess there's a slight chance it could be Cyberpunk. I mean, this is the game of glitches, you know. Used to be notorious for how glitchy it was. So that is a possibility. But yeah, even at 1%, the drift is completely gone. Which is kind of amazing. Because no idea what that was. Okay. Because yeah, by comparison, if I connected my DualSense, which I have one DualSense controller that is practically new. Don't know And I'll have a separate video on just the yeah, that's about what I expected. What is going on over there? What is that? Oh my goodness. Yeah, this one is all over the place. It's how's the left stick? Going up a lot. Sometimes it doesn't. After like a down input, but then it's like still going down. After a left input. Yeah, it seems like after no, it's still going down. Yeah, after a left input, it stays kind of still. But this isn't. Oh my goodness. If I turn this to 0. Oh yeah. Yeah, so maybe it is. Maybe it is Cyberpunk. I don't know, because that is a stark difference. Oh, this is on recommended. Oh my goodness. Okay, hold on. Oh my goodness. Okay. Okay, there we go. I remember doing this before. It's about a 9% amount of drift, I think. Yeah. Yeah. Which, for Alps, analog sticks, within under 10% is like the acceptable range, if I remember correctly. So, like, a lot of analog stick units actually do ship with drift in like because there's an acceptable level of like variance, like variation within potentiometers, and yeah, so sometimes, and most of the time, it'll go unnoticed, like 100%. But that's because most software has default dead zones that you can't fully disable. So maybe it has to do with recommended, how many inputs onto curve before applying sensitivity. Sensitive. Let's just go raw. Yeah. I don't want it altering shit. And these are already like how I like them. So if you're curious, like go ahead and like screenshot that or whatever, try it out for yourself. Okay, so the right stick is definitely down. Whoa. Yeah, it's going down like all the time. What is going on over there? It sounds. Whoa. Yeah, it's jeez, dude. It is really hard to even look over there. Okay, this is definitely different. Okay, settings, controls. I have to hold up on the right stick to even do anything here. Okay, there we go. Yeah, 9 should be. Fine. Yeah, the amount of like ramp up is pretty bad, honestly. But I also like never use this controller, so of course it's gonna feel different. But yeah, just having that like 10% dead zone, it's not a good feeling. It's kind of bad. Like, I don't hate the way DualSense feels ergonomically. I mostly hate how the inputs feel, especially the face buttons and the D-pad and the analog sticks and the layout and the shoulder buttons. I'm just not a big fan. In my opinion, the Pro 2 for Xbox is vastly superior, maybe an unpopular opinion, but personal preference. But yeah, I think that's about it. So thank y'all for being here, guys. Greatly appreciate it. Sorry this turned into such a long episode, but again, there were 3 sections, and I wanted to kind of talk at length about some of these things because, like I said, this video has been 1 year in the making, so I had a lot of thoughts, a lot of notes, and a lot of stuff to get to. But yeah. And also, I should say, before we get to the outro, I believe Sony recently increased the price of the DualSense controllers, so I think they're up to like 75 USD now. So even at full price, without discounts, the Pro 2 for Xbox is still about half the price of a DualSense. So, yeah. If you get it on a discount like it is now, 20% off, then it's less than half. So, and it feels twice as good. So, yeah. And honestly, Hall Effect sticks or TMR sticks should just be the standard now. Like, Alps sticks are terrible. Even like King Silvers are really, really good comparatively. If you want to use standard potentiometers, like King Silvers are way better than Alps. Like, but yeah, Alps are still being used like all the time, and it's baffling. I have no idea why they're doing this. Anyway, thank y'all for being here. Greatly appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed. Of course, before we get going, it's time for the outro. Special thanks, updates, all that jazz. And a very special thank you going out to the amazing people who helped make it possible, the current Farts and Crap Show members, which at the time of recording is Novalis Draconis, Aaron Schick, and 97 Johnny Boy. Thank y'all so very much for choosing to support the show a bit more directly via channel membership. It vastly helps out. Very much appreciate it, and it is very much optional. So you guys are extra awesome for doing so. I've been talking a lot today, so I'm going to take a quick drink of coffee. And partially lied. This video brought to you by coffee. Almost literally. Almost. Not quite. But yeah, if you want to be incredibly awesome like these amazing people and get in on all those membership benefits, check out that join button down below. You know what I'm talking about, there's no join button for you. That can happen for various reasons. But regardless, there is a link in the description that talks about becoming a channel member that will do the same thing. But yeah, membership tiers start at $3 a month. That's roughly 10 cents a day. Gets you into all the basic stuff, including getting to vote on the series get made here on the channel via the Members' Choice polls. It's a thing we do once a month for a full week over on the membership tab, and that is how all of the series get decided. So, if you guys want to get in on that, we will have one coming up for... Actually, we have one going on right now. If you're watching this around the time of release, which should be before Thanksgiving because, again, it's a Black Friday deal that I was talking about for the controller, and it would be best to get this video out before Thanksgiving. So we do have one going on right now if you're watching it before December 2025. And it is deciding a future retro classic series. So not the one directly after Final Fantasy IX, but the one to follow that. And if you're a new channel member, you can vote on any of the previous ones that you may have missed. And there's like 40 of them over on the membership tab, so even if you're just a member for 1 month, you could vote on every Member's Choice poll we've ever had. And you're still going to be influencing the content that gets made here for quite some time because retroactive input on previous polls is considered for future ones. This is, however, all an approximation of future announcements from the past. So if you want all the announcements as they happen, and the bell doesn't work for you, I got you, the bell does not work for me. But there are 4 other ways you can stay up to date. We have the post tab here on the channel, the Farts and Crap Show Twitter, the Bluesky, and the Discord. I always post on all 4 whenever there's an announcement, so regardless of which one of those works for you, you can stay up to date. And links for those are down in the description, also on the channel banner. Yeah, that's gonna do it for now. So, thank you all once again for being here, guys. If you want to catch up on any of the series here on the show, I will have a link to the Cyberpunk series and the aforementioned Hollow Knight series, as well as the playlist of Stick Tips episodes. And they should be popping up right about now. But till next time, I hope you and yours have a beautiful day.